Hey everyone, welcome back to 360 Sports. We've got a very special show today. I'm here with Nick, Pat, and introducing Nick Haden, former Penn State center, 3-time letter winner, and NFL player selected by the Raiders in the 7th round of the 1985 NFL Draft. So I'm really excited. Let's get right into this. So first we're going to start off with the segment Getting to Know Nick Haden. So you've played the game at the highest level, being drafted by the Raiders and then playing for the Eagles. But let's start off with your college career. So what was it like playing under Paterno? I mean, the days where he was the coach. And what was it like blocking one of the best running backs in Penn State history, Curtis Warner?
Well, you know, you're really jarring my memory here, but I mean, I just think, you know, in hindsight, you know, what an honor truly it was for me and so many others who played for Joe. He was such a great inspiration. He was a great leader. He was a great motivator. He genuinely cared about the players. And, you know, I could go on and on and on, but given the length of the show, I might as well wrap a bow on it. But they were 4 incredibly wonderful years.
Yeah. So do you have a favorite memory from the 1982 National Championship team?
Yeah, I mean, well, there are a few, but the one that probably most guys like me might not recall was landing in the Harrisburg airport and getting on the bus and driving back to State College. And 322 was, everywhere you looked, there were people standing on the side of the highway waving at us.
Wow.
Was this after the Georgia game?
This was after the Georgia game, right after the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
And it just seemed forever. It was epic. It was like something out of a motion picture. And all those people from all over the state came out there and just lined, you know, shoulder to shoulder on Route 322 from Harrisburg all the way into State College. It was incredible.
Are you guys like out the windows like waving to the people? Or
It was a little
more...
chilly.
Yeah.
We did our best.
That's awesome.
We were stunned. We couldn't believe the reception. We just, you know, we were still processing the whole victory. You know, it was surreal. I mean, to win a national championship, the university's first championship.
Yep.
I mean, it was surreal. But that was a spectacular memory.
Now, I got a question for you. And you can be humble here or you can be boastful. We welcome you to be boastful on the show. Who do you think would win in a head-on-head matchup, the 1982 team or the 1986 team?
Well,
A lot of talent on both teams.
no, I don't know. I think probably the '86 team. I mean, they just had, both teams had great athletes. Both teams had tenacious players. I don't know. I just think I think they would have won the game. If there was a way to miraculously put 82 against 86, I think 86 would win. I mean, I'm going to get off the air here and I'm going to get a few texts from some friends and they're going to call me a few names, but I'm just being honest.
Listen, I'm an 82 guy. I think you guys had a little bit more talent than that 86 team, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's cool. Like, just like, can you imagine? That's like, I think like Remember the Titans or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like all the players just being like, you're like celebrities. Like you're the biggest team ever, especially for like, you know, just like the, I don't even know the word, just like the pride that Penn State has. Like even back then, like I could only think of now. Imagine if the football team was doing that now and how just like the whole campus would just all come together just to celebrate that. Like that must be awesome.
Yeah, it really is. I mean the and clearly now in 2024, it's a much bigger game. You know, the television, the coverage, social media. I hope they have an opportunity to play for a title and win it.
I think we're all hoping the same.
Yeah. I mean, we're gonna talk about, you know, a lot of the new playoff stuff coming up, so we'll hold that thought, I guess.
Sure.
But, yeah.
Yeah, but being able to experience that is really, truly amazing.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so I also wanted to ask you, draft day, what did that look like for you? Do you remember where you were, what you were doing?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I do. I was over, I had an apartment here. I had graduated in January of '85, so I went home to my parents' house, stayed there, and I got a call from the Cowboys, I think, and it was like in the 5th round. They said, we're going to pick you. My agent called, and then they didn't pick me.
Yeah.
So I went out to get an ice cream cone. What do you do when you don't get picked? I went and got an ice cream cone. I got back 2 minutes later, and the Raiders called.
Wow.
So, yeah. That's how it all went down. And then right after they called, so my agent called, and before I knew it, I was leaving from State College and hopping on a plane to Los Angeles.
Wow.
Talk about whirlwind.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
That's crazy.
That is an experience that I know 3 of us will never experience.
Yeah.
How was it playing or being on that Raiders team, playing for them?
I mean, there were a lot of personalities out there. I mean, you really got to look at it. I mean, first of all, I mean, you know, Mr. Davis, God rest his soul, moved the team from Oakland into Los Angeles. And the Rams were there, but they were in Orange County. I mean, the Raiders were in the heart of Los Angeles. And we were welcomed. We had some really neat personalities. You know, Howie was on our team.
Yeah.
Matt Millen was on our team. Plunkett was a quarterback. Marcus Allen. Michael Haynes. I mean, we're talking Hall of Famers. Todd Christensen was there, one of the all-time great tight ends. And, you know, we actually had the best record in the AFC that year. We had a bye week, and we lost to the Patriots in the first round of the playoffs. And we went home.
That was in 85 now,
It
or
was in
the
85,
85 or 86
yeah, it was
season?
85.
Wow.
And that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was over. We were focused on the
Yeah.
Super Bowl, because that's when,
Yeah, of course,
you know,
yeah.
and
Exactly.
we were
Raiders
really
were the top
talking
of the
about
world.
the Bears
Yeah.
versus the Raiders.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially having that bye. So.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, so after 85, you caught on with the Eagles in 86
Right.
and played several games with Ron Jaworski and a young Randall Cunningham at quarterback. So what was that experience like for you? Do you have any memories or anything? And what was it like to play offensive line with a quarterback like Randall, who was so unpredictable and dynamic?
Well, I mean, Philly's a great sports town, okay, and the Eagles are
yes, it
cherished.
is.
Yeah.
And they don't like when you lose.
No.
No.
And they're passionate. So I think having that thrill and the honor of playing down there was really wonderful. You know, we weren't all that good. I mean, we were a very young team. Buddy came in and took over our team, and he cleaned house with the roster prior to, and we had a bunch of young guys that really didn't know what we were doing, but we were really trying hard. And, you know, it was difficult. You know, Jaworski was really simple to block for. I mean, you know, he was just straight back and stay in a pocket and throw it. That's the way he played, and that's the way he was.
Polish rifle.
Randall, on the other hand, had a unique gift, and that was called athleticism.
Yeah.
And I mean, he used to get back in that pocket. If he didn't like anything, he'd go to his right, and then he'd drift back to the center and go to his left. Now, you know, as an offensive lineman, you're coached to block like 4.5 seconds. Well, it wasn't unusual to have him run around back there for like 13, 14 seconds. So when you're going back into the huddle, you could barely keep your head up because you were so winded. But he was exciting. The fans loved him. We loved him, and it was great. I mean, he really kind of. I really think like today's young scrambling pro quarterbacks, I think they might even look at film of him on how
absolutely.
incredibly talented he was. Field of vision, rocket arm, and a good sense of the game.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I mean, even like absolutely like the other quarterbacks do. Like Jalen Hurts obviously has that free roam ability. Obviously, I would say he's pretty athletic. He's been on like multiple podcasts and shows saying like, you know, he's met McNabb, he's met Vic, he's met Randall, and he's looked up to them since he was even a kid. So to see that at such a young age for you, that must be. I mean, that he wasn't like, I mean, not the first to ever do it, but certainly one of the best in the early years. Like that must have thrown defenses for a whirlwind. Like how did you notice like linemen how did you notice linemen reacting to that? Like defensive linemen being like, what is this guy doing? Like,
yeah, I mean, it was tough. I mean, you know, you're taught you have rush lanes, you have to stay in your lanes. I mean, linemen are supposed to block the lanes. We're supposed to, you know, back then it was drop back. There was no shotgun.
Right.
And, you know, he'd drop back and then he'd just gently drift right, gently drift left. If he had to turn it on, he'd put on the jets and he'd go real far right and back over. And you know, chasing him was tough. And I mean, that's no joke.
Yeah.
But he had unbelievable quickness and stamina, and he made plays.
Yeah.
And guys who were running patterns found a way to get open.
Yeah.
It was that simple.
From a very young age, my father always told me this is the most talented quarterback that's ever played the game of football. So
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean. My dad always showed me tape when I was younger.
Yeah, so we're going to move on now to NIL controversy. So a big difference from your time in college football to now is the addition of athletes being eligible for NIL deals. So I can imagine you, Nick, you got strong opinions on this because it's a pretty big deal. Things have changed, but let's go around and talk about what changes these mean for college football and other athletes.
You know, I'm still scratching my head and trying to figure it out. I mean, you know, I'm a fossil up here amongst you, and you know, I can recall back in the 80s and even in the early 90s, I mean, there were universities and athletic programs basically calling for a stipend.
Yeah.
You know, and if you were on a scholarship, an NCAA scholarship, you weren't allowed to work. So, you know, think about it. You're regardless of sport. You know, so you couldn't, you know, work at the hub. You couldn't work as a server at a restaurant. You couldn't bounce at a bar, if you will. And, you know, universities and athletic departments were calling just for a simple stipend, just so you can go on a date and go to a movie, you know, something like that, or go bowling, whatever you wanted to do. But it's not that way anymore.
Mm-hmm. You talked to me about, like, before we started talking about it, like the stuff with, you know, like Saban and like him visiting the stuff. I thought it would be a great idea for other people to hear it, especially maybe like Pat or Jenna. We were talking to me like with Saban's outlook on the whole NIL stuff, with like how it's changing the mentality of these athletes, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Nick Saban fan.
Mm-hmm.
How can you not be?
And I think, you know, just following him. I mean, I don't have social media, and I don't follow social media. So wherever he's broadcasted, and if he's on the air, I'll watch. But he made a remark about, you know, he and his wife entertaining recruits, and you know, he's old school. You know, he's teaching kids the right way. And you know, after hosting a recruiting weekend, his wife said, you know, these kids are more worried about how much money they're going to make in NIL.
Yeah, absolutely.
Than getting an education and worry about life's work. You know, so when he said that, it really, really hit me. And I still don't know how all this works. I know a lot of people, a lot of young men and women are making a lot of money over here. I don't begrudge them. I don't have I don't resent any of that stuff. But clearly, in a short period of time, it has become a runaway train.
Now, I'm a fan of the NIL deals, but the transfer market is something completely different, but it's also something that's come around in the past few years, and that's completely changed the game, especially from what it was like years ago when you couldn't transfer. You had to take years off if you wanted to change schools. What do you think of the transfer market, and how do you think that's changed the game?
I mean, I guess for me, like the first thing that I think about, and you know, I guess you're allowed to do it, so be it. I don't know how the universities feel about it, but you know, again, just, you know, if you're at one institution, you transfer to another institution, and then maybe you transfer to another institution. How do your grades follow you to the second university, to the third university? That's a mystery to me, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, universities have requirements.
Yeah.
You know, how does degree or working on a degree at this place, how do they transfer to here? How do they transfer to there? How do you still have eligibility if they don't even transfer? I think the other thing, and I don't think people are looking at this, you know, with the transfer portal, this has got to be hard on high school athletes, because so many coaches sign their athletes. They have to keep some spots open for the portal. So ultimately, high school seniors are getting impacted. You know, and you know that's kind of crummy if you think about it.
Yeah, you are seeing.
I would think so.
You are seeing a lot of freshmen and like sophomore players transferring from smaller schools to the bigger schools now, because of that transfer market and because of what you were just saying.
It's almost kind of the same of like how like actual jobs work in a way, which kind of goes with what we were saying with like NIL, how it's like almost like a business venture at this point. Like you start off, especially for like journalists like us, you start off at like maybe a smaller place, and then as you grow, you get into that bigger stuff. It's kind of the exact same thing. It's almost a congruent path, which I don't know if that's right. Like I personally don't agree with that. I think like if you're like a star in high school, you should absolutely be going to the top universities. And obviously like the best of the best are, but it's for those like second tier players that would be getting those chances are getting blocked out like the transfer by the transfer portal, like you said.
Yeah.
So that's I would have never even thought of that. That's a great point.
That's very true.
I mean, and I think the other thing too, I mean, if you look at it realistically, a scholarship is a contractual obligation. Okay, between an institution, an athletic program, and an athlete. Okay, they're people honor contracts. Okay, the transfer portal allows them to tear a contract up. I think that's kind of sour.
Yeah.
I agree.
Also, what's interesting is you see college athletes now staying an extra year or foregoing the draft and staying because they're making tons of money, potentially more money than they'll make in the league. So I think that that's also interesting, too, to see how much money some of these insane players, I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. making tons and tons of money.
I think Archie Manning was making it was like $6 million this year,
Yeah.
just off NIL deals.
That's more than Brock Purdy's making right now.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
That's the
Yeah.
first thing that came to mind. He
Yeah.
had a Super Bowl quarterback. I don't know what I don't pay that attention to his contract, but clearly college athletes are making more money
800K,
than him.
something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
170.
Yeah.
I think it was somewhere
Yeah, something
around
like
there.
that. Yeah,
for
I
his
thought it was
contract
860.
for
Kind of
something like that,
amazing.
yeah.
An amateur's making more
Yeah.
than a pro.
Yeah, and I mean,
Yeah.
look
So-
at like how much Bronny is probably making. You know what I mean?
think Bronny's
Obviously,
up there
like
and-
I mean, he's up there in like the top like 3,
Yeah.
like all-time college. I think it's
Archie.
Archie.
Shadur.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot about him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe.
Yeah.
It's all sons of famous
Yeah,
families.
exactly.
But
Right.
I mean, it is wild. Like, it's totally changing the game. And I don't, like, obviously, I totally get, like, the mentality and what Saban is saying. But at the same time, imagine if you are, like, I don't know about you. I'm not the biggest Shadur fan, as in, like, skill-wise. Like, I don't think he's going to be, like,
I'm not either.
a first-round pick. Like, maybe he can improve to it, but I don't think he is
Right.
right now. It's kind of smart. Like, I would absolutely be eating up these NIL deals if you
I
know
would
that
too,
maybe
yeah.
your future isn't as locked in as Marvin Harrison's would be, or like Drake May's would be, or someone like that. I would absolutely try to stay in the NIL as much as I could, because that's where the money is. You know what I mean? So I don't blame it. Like, I get how coaches and analysts are looking at it, but then also how the players are looking at it. Because in the end, you got to look out for yourself and where you're making money. Like, absolutely. So I think it'll only get more interesting as it keeps happening, because it's pretty new. Was it like
Yeah,
2 or
it
3
is
years
fairly-
maybe, or
fairly
is this
new.
4 now?
Well, transfer market I think is around 5. So
Yeah.
I think NIL is 3 now.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see once it really gets going, like once it really gets booming, and then how it affects how the game is played.
College football's only getting
And-
bigger at this point.
yeah, exactly.
Like last year we
Exactly.
saw the highest viewership for a game ever
Yeah.
between Notre Dame and Ohio State.
Yeah.
So the viewership is only going to keep going up, especially with these NIL deals. So we'll see.
Yeah.
See how big the contracts get.
Yeah. All right, now moving on, we're going to go to kind of some different Penn State sports. So Penn State wrestling obviously won the 2024 National Championship last month. 11th in school history, 17th straight Big Ten wins. So notable wrestlers like Carter Strachey, Greg Kirkfleet, Aaron Brooks, and Levi Haynes all won in their weight class. So what reason do you pin for Penn State wrestling's years of success?
You know, it's hard to say. I mean, you know, what's going on today is dynasty stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it really
Absolutely.
is. I mean, we
Yes.
got to cut right to the chase. I mean, Penn State always had a great program. You know, back in the '80s, they had churned All-Americans. Matter of fact, there was a teammate on the '82 team by the name of Steve Sefter who went to Cedar Cliff High School.
Wow.
And Seth was a down lineman for us, and he wrestled his going into his junior year, and he was an All-American at 220 heavyweight. And you know, he was a state champion in high school. But you know, they always churn great wrestling programs, and
absolutely.
I mean, that's a tough sport. I mean, that is a tough sport.
Yeah. I also think Cale Sanderson, what he's doing for the program is really huge. He's a great coach.
Yeah, I mean, since I've been at Penn State, I mean, it's only been 2 years for me. I've always kept up with wrestling, not only like just being with athletics, but just as well. I like going to the BJC duels and working those events
Yeah.
is my all-time favorite thing that I've done.
And the coolest matches. I think forgive me for saying, they might be better than football games. When that's
BJC
really
duels?
going in
Yeah.
BJC, it is fun.
Maybe I would say last year's Iowa
Yeah.
was definitely better than this year's Rutgers.
Yeah, I
Obviously,
agree.
because that's different competition. But I mean, giving enough credit to these athletes. I mean, Carter is probably the best wrestler that Penn State has ever had, in my opinion. I mean, 4-time champion.
Aaron Brooks did it too. Though.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. Oh, yeah.
And he's probably
I
going
don't
to
know.
win
I
the Dan
think
Hodge this
for
year.
me personally,
because Carter got hurt.
yeah, for me personally, because of also like how he jumps in weight class as well, like he can do it all, and to watch them do it up close and even in Rec Hall, just watch them do it is nothing short of incredible. I know we were talking about watching it instead of March Madness, and I absolutely don't blame anybody for doing that in the slightest, because it is so fun to watch, and obviously Penn State's known for football, and maybe it's because we go here, but I really think wrestling should be taking off
should be a
way
much
more
bigger
than it
sport.
should, because it's definitely not nationally.
I have a
Yeah.
couple things to say on Cale Sanderson. I think is obviously. I think that was originally why there's so much success, but now I think there's a culture there. You have national champions every single year, 2 or 3 of them, that the younger guys can learn from. And you got guys like Aaron Brooks and Carter Stracci who go down to some of the greatest collegiate wrestlers ever. I mean, there's only been 7 guys before them to win 4 consecutive national titles. So there's just this culture now here at Penn State. And plus, we put up 170 points in the college. No team's ever done that.
Yeah.
It's a record. It's ridiculous how good these guys are. We should have had 2 other ones. I mean, Bo Bartlett and Mitchell Messenbrink should have won 2. They didn't, and I don't blame them. It's a national championship. I mean, it happens. But we are becoming a wrestling school. As much as we are a football school, the football school will never change. And because it's awesome and everybody loves to see Penn State football, it's one of the greatest programs in the world. Penn State wrestling, they're doing something different, something that nobody's ever seen before.
Yeah. I mean, I especially because Levi, I believe, is a sophomore.
Levi's a sophomore.
Yeah, and I mean, for him to be doing what he's doing at the high level, I mean, you would think he's, like, I see these guys walking around campus all the time, like, even Bo's shorter than me, and I'm not even that tall, I'm like 5'7", but, like, I'm not tall at all. And, like, to see this guy, I'm like, oh my gosh, this dude is on a different level. You talk about athleticism, I mean, these guys can do it all. I remember I was talking about this in one of my classes, because it's right at Rec Hall, and obviously it's right near South Gym where all of them train. And we were talking about how much of agility and endurance and strength and, like, all these different types of athletic abilities that you have to be a wrestler and to be at, like, the consistent level that they're at is just incredible. I mean, it is all credit to Cale and that organization and, like, the coaching staff and all of them, but I just love it, and I'm so glad that I get 2 more years of it just to enjoy it, because I know it's not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, actually, so a student athlete who's like a freshman wrestler was in my class last semester, and he would always talk about how he wished wrestling was just more recognized. And he was like, everyone talks about football, everyone talks about the whiteout, but he's like, wrestling, our team's winning in the country, like best in the country for the past 11 years. So it's
11
crazy.
out of 13.
Yeah. So we're also going to talk about the Big Ten merger. It's in full swing next season. So obviously for football, this means the introduction of teams like Washington, UCLA, USC. But what about the other sports that Penn State has to offer? How is this going to affect them, like sports like basketball and lacrosse?
I mean, you're gonna need a master's in logistics to manage all the travel. Really,
I know.
Think about it. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, all the girls varsity sport, women's varsity sports, and boys varsity sports. I mean, you know, and back and forth the travel. You know, I keep coming back. You know, going away for 2 days. I mean, you just don't drive to LA. You know, you just don't do that.
Yeah.
It's not like from here to Philly. I mean, you know, it wears you out, and you know, you got to stay on your studies. You got to, you know, be present in class. You got to compete to the best of your ability at your meet or your game. I don't know how they do it. I mean, obviously, it's going down and it's going to happen. We'll see how it all plays out. I mean, I'll be quite interested to see how all this works.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because this is one thing we didn't really touch on, but you've touched on it a couple times. What was it like for you balancing that? Like, obviously it's not as big as it would be now with, I'm sure, all the traveling and like the social media and like everything else you would have to deal with as a student athlete. But how was that for you, balancing everything? Did you find difficulty, or like what was that like? Because that's something, I mean, all of us have no idea what that's like. You know what I mean? So how did you find that experience?
Well, first of all, I got to cut to the chase. I was no straight A student. Okay, and if my friends see this, they'll attest to that. But nevertheless, I mean, you know, you've got to make room, because if you think about it, I mean, the term is student athlete. Mm-hmm. It's not athlete, period. It's student athlete. So you have to matriculate, and you know, it's up to your to the athletic department. It's up to your coaches. It's up to academic advisors, and it's ultimately up to you. Mm-hmm. You know, you got to stick your nose in the books. It's the way it works. Never changed. You know, unless you're gifted. And overly intelligent, maybe you can sneak by with lesser work, but you know, it's tough. It consumes your life. You know, the one thing that went on here that when I was here was, you know, we didn't have an athletic dorm. None of the athletes, women or men, lived in an athletic dorm. We were amongst the entire student body, which was so cool, because that's what the college experience is about. Yeah. It really is. You know, the classwork, the athletic stuff, and then ultimately the social stuff. Yeah. I mean, that's why we come.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's
No, like
interesting
Martin
you say that,
Hall,
'cause
like, I was thinking,
yeah,
is that
I
where
was
you
just
were?
gonna say, yeah, a lot of the football players will live in Martin Hall up in East Halls, and they kind of all have each other. But like you said, it's interesting because was Paterno really big on that, like having
was gonna
the
ask the same thing,
players
yeah.
amongst everyone else at the school?
Yeah, I mean, Joe was basically we're not different. We're
Yeah.
like everybody else.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, we had training table during the season, and we had training table during spring practice. But we were eating dining hall food. I remember
Yeah.
eating in Rediford Hall. And
Yeah.
that's where we ate in the off season, and so be it. You know, take out your ID card,
Yeah.
take it through, scan you, and go
Yeah.
load up. But that's
Yeah.
what we did,
Yeah.
and it was great.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah, so now we're going to move on to a little fun segment here. Pick a door. So basically there's going to be 3 doors on the screen, and you're going to have to randomly pick one to build your custom running back that you would be blocking for. So think about yourself. And the first category is going to be speed, the second one's going to be strength, and then IQ. So let's start off with speed here. Pick a door, any door.
So whoever you get, this is what
Yes.
this person's speed is. So like, let's say if like Curtis is behind that door, then you got the speed of Curtis. So whatever door you pick is what you got stuck with.
I'm going to start with number 1.
All right.
All right.
That's a good one. Saquon.
Saquon's.
Yeah, I mean
That's great.
I mean, to lose, I would say. I mean, Marcus Allen would probably. I mean, he'd probably be the best one to be there, but
you're lucky you didn't get Jerome Bettis.
yeah,
for
you did
speed.
not get. Yeah, you did not get this for strength. That would have been nice. So
yeah.
you got the. So it'd be the. We're kind of just building like a custom running back. So
Yeah.
the speed of Saquon Barkley.
I think he was a 4-4 back. I think
Yeah.
it was-
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to strength. What door are you going to choose?
I'm going to go out of sequence. I'm going to pick number 3.
All right.
Alright.
Okay.
Can't miss it.
Alright.
Oh yeah.
I think also number 2. I would say. Like out of the options.
Out of the options, I think.
Yeah,
he is
obviously
second.
Derrick Henry would be number 1 for strength, but I mean for a guy, strength of Eric Dickerson, that's actually not bad. Would he be number 2 or number 3 on this board?
I mean,
I don't know. I think it's close.
I'm not an Emmitt Smith guy in the first place, but I
don't like
would
seeing
probably
that
give it
star
over Eric
personally.
Dickerson. Eric Dickerson was a big finesse back.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about it? Who do you pick?
I mean, I'm clearly Derek, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, Eric Dickerson could go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Marcus Allen on the first screen. I mean, Marcus Allen was tough as nails.
Yeah.
I mean, he was not at all bashful at taking on a blitzing linebacker, and
Yeah.
he would put his nose right in your face.
Yeah.
He was rough.
Yeah. All right,
You know
so
that Madden
moving on.
20 Eric Dickerson?
Oh yeah.
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 To the final door, we've got IQ. So let's see who's the smartest when it comes to being a running back.
If he drills
Marina,
AP, that'd be crazy.
Number 2.
Barry.
We got to go with
Yeah.
number 2 for IQ.
Oh, called it.
I'd say actually excuse me for saying. I think he's number 3
On
that
this
board.
list?
Yeah.
What do you think, Nick? What do you think for this one? Because, I mean, Barry would probably be
Yeah.
number 1 for this pick, but I mean, you got a pretty good guy. I mean,
I
all
wish-
of these options are.
I wish it was the
pretty
door
good.
4 because I would have had to pick instinct, right? I mean, if there was a door
That's fair.
4, I would
Yeah.
have picked instinct. I mean, it's a tough call. I mean, you know, these are all Hall of Famers. I mean, holy
Absolutely.
smokes.
Yeah.
You know, Peyton was, I mean, you have to have like game smarts, you know? I mean, just instinct. And that's,
Yeah.
you can't coach that.
Yeah.
No, yeah,
Just
absolutely
can't.
not.
And like all these guys, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'll flip a coin. That's my best.
Yeah.
That's my best.
That's really so. The speed of Saquon, the strength of
Eric Dickerson.
and then the
IQ.
IQ of Adrian Peterson. I mean,
I
you probably. I
really
think
care.
you would definitely have your stats. Your stats will be looking good for this guy. If you blocked for him, I think this guy would go pretty. You know, he'd go for a 1,000-yard season
Well,
for sure.
if you had that combination, I mean, you'd probably get away with 1 fewer lineman.
Honestly, that's probably true.
Yeah.
An IQ one for a rare pick for me is Le'Veon Bell, one of the greatest football
For
IQs I've ever
IQs?
seen. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you think he's better than Adrian Peterson for IQ?
I don't know. I don't think he had the other tangibles that Adrian Peterson
Yeah.
did, but IQ, he was up there.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. That's not too bad. I think you got. I mean,
I think that's a good
you're going
back.
for 1,000 rushing yards at least, probably 1,500 rushing yards at least. I would say 15 touchdowns
Yeah.
in a season with this build you got.
Yeah, that's strong. That's a good one.
I don't think there's any combination there you really could have gone wrong
Yeah,
with.
maybe
I
Jerome
know.
Bettis' speed. You might have had a
Jerome
problem.
I
Bettis'
know.
speed might have been an issue. Yeah.
Those were
Yeah.
all some pretty good picks. So I think that's all we've got
Yeah.
for today's show. Nick, thank you so much
Thank
for
you for-
coming on.
This is awesome.
Yeah,
So-
we
so
really
it was an awesome
appreciate it.
experience.
I mean,
I really
great
appreciate
show. we've got our next show tomorrow, hockey live at 5:50. It's going to be a good one, so make sure you tune in at around 5:50. Nick, thank you for coming on. Pat, thank you, and of course, Nick again. I really appreciate you.
This was a fabulous experience, and I'm excited to be back here and just to see what's going on here in this studio. I mean, this is world-class stuff.
Wow.
It really is world-class.
That's great. That's great to hear. I mean, yeah, it's cool to get like both sides of it. Do you know what I mean? Because like, for you to see like our world, but then for us to get a peek into your wild world that you live.
Yeah, because things have changed so much. So I think it's really interesting to get a look back at what it was like. So yeah, thank you so much, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.